Hello, Hess Toy Truck fans, author and superfan Mike Roberto here. Today with our special guest, Justin Mayer, manager of the Hess Toy Truck. Justin, how are you today, sir?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me. As always this time of year, it's wonderful to be in touch with you. And before we even get started, I want to say thanks for everything that you do to create all the enthusiasm for the Hess brand and your continued support for both us and all of the fans like yourself. So with that, I am ready for your questioning, which I'm sure you're well prepared to pepper me with some good stuff. I'm looking forward to it. What do you got? Throw it at me.
Now, Justin, the reason why we're here today is obviously we are celebrating 60 years of this iconic toy truck brand, right? Now, when you think about it, the weird thing is that the people that started this thing, chances are they're no longer with us. It's been a long time, right? And when you think about it, even yet, today, most of us probably weren't even born around the time that this thing started. So when you take into consideration this complete dichotomy of generations, my question to you, sir, how do you balance this legacy product for today's audiences?
So yeah, for us, it's really important that we kind of buck the trend that we see when you think about today's audiences, right? Many toy brands have gone very digital in some way, shape, or form, whether it's fully going digital in terms of gaming or some sort of forced connection, trying to take physical toys and connect them via software into some sort of digital experience. That's sort of one of the trends we see out there. And the other one is that, it's all about price. And so folks take all the greatness out of their toys, the quality, the features, in order to hit maybe a mandated lower price point by the buyers at one of the club or mass retailers out there. And we kind of think that's a little sad. And when we think about our role, right, our role has been to follow Leon Hess's direction about what he set out for the toy truck brand to be from the very beginning, which is to make amazingly fun toys with unmatched quality at an affordable price. And whether it's today's audiences or yesterday's audiences or tomorrow's audience, that's not going to change. What we try to do is constantly introduce new vehicle types that allow this ever-expanding world of Hess imaginative play so that kids can keep having physical imaginative play. Far too often today, we think kids are on those electronical devices, young, but even younger, it feels like every year. And we really want to give them a reason to continue to play physically with a good old-fashioned Hess toy. And that way they can create their world of rescue or construction or whatever the case may be by introducing the newest product every year. And that's really our key to having each new generation of kids continue to fall in love with our toys. Now, we recognize that, innovation has to be part of what we do because every new generation is going to expect something new. And so we don't just sort of throw that jingle out there that the Hess truck's back and better than ever. It's really more of a mission statement for us to make sure that we're constantly trying to do more, add more features in order that, these younger kids stay really connected to these toys because they're going to be less impressed with toys that have less features. So when we think about recent years of adding wheelies or more sounds or motion activated sounds, these new advanced lighting patterns that are integrated into the toys, we really are about trying to appeal to kids of today in many respects. And look, at the end of the day, we're going to continue to make really high quality toys that are fun. We're not cutting corners. We recognize there's some pricing implications to that, but we think that is key to our insurance that new generations will love the product as much as the generations before them.
In the beginning, now this is all information stated by Hess themselves, the very first truck, the 1964 BMAC, consisted of 75 individual parts. We know that in 1999, the truck and space shuttle at the time was the most advanced truck ever. And then in 2017, in one of the STEM papers, it says that the 2017 truck, I believe, had over 350 parts. With that said, and since it's literally been 25 years since the space shuttle, what has been the most complicated slash advanced or most intricate Hess toy truck design released thus far?
Let's start by being clear that the number of parts isn't necessarily by itself a defining factor of whether a toy is really complicated or advanced. What we've really struggled with when it comes to like trying to get a certain product to come together at times is ensuring that design of that product can withstand very high levels of our product durability testing, which includes that famous 300-pound weight test, right? That's lowered onto the product before we go into production to make sure it can withstand strong weight. So that is really somewhat of a limiting factor in making sure that something's strong enough, as is the size of what we're trying to deliver, because we don't want to have really big products that drive up the shipping costs and manufacturing costs. You've already seen some price increase from us over the years, and we're trying to minimize that as most we can. So when we think about complications, it's often a combination of factors where we want to do something in a scale that makes sense with some new features, but we have to stay true to the mandate of the quality, the durability, and the affordability. So things that I would say are a little bit more complicated for us, we've introduced are things like the motion activated sounds. They're not super advanced, but they're a little bit more complicated. In recent years, the animated lighting patterns, right? A little bit more sophisticated electronics being included in that. Again, nothing groundbreaking that I would say is like super complicated or advanced, but it's there. I think for me, the thing that always I wrestled with for the longest time, believe it or not, it may be kind of silly to think about it, but the 2016 Dragster, that was an engineering challenge, I would say, more so than most things that I think back on, because we really wanted that Dragster, which, by the way, was really big. I mean, it was almost twice the volume of any other secondary we had produced to that point. But we wanted to be able to wheelie if it was released in a wheelie mode, or race flat if released in a flat mode. And trying to figure out the engineering of how to make that work took a lot of iterations. And ultimately, sort of the simplicity of this mechanical weighted ball was a very simple and elegant solution that solved a problem that enabled us to then deliver the product we wanted. So sometimes it comes down to things like that, not necessarily just the sheer number of parts. And when we think of intricate, we think about all the little details that we want to put in, all the little engravings and carvings and things of that nature. To us is the intricate, so that the toy feels authentic. And some folks will say, oh, it's not a true Hess truck, or it's not a perfect replica of something that exists in the marketplace. But that doesn't mean we're not trying to put in amazing levels of detail on every piece of plastic and every piece of, chrome, finish. We really want it to feel, certainly with the kids playing with it, that it is very authentic and lifelike. So I think that's really what we think about, more so than just the number of parts.
When you take into consideration all the years that have passed and what you yourself have seen over the last decade or so that you've been holding the reins, what kind of shift have you personally seen in the dynamic of the target audience?
So from a targeting perspective, I think you were alluding to this. We definitely want to be focused on ensuring that we introduce the toy and the brand to folks who maybe not familiar with it. So potentially didn't grow up in the core part of the country on the East Coast where the gas stations were, from legacy business, and perhaps a new generation of folks. So much of our targeting recently has been focused on sort of outside the East Coast and younger generations. Obviously, a lot of folks have been collecting with us for a long time. We've had some folks on the older end of the scale who have passed on and who've passed that tradition down. So it's always important that we introduce this so that it continues to be sort of rejuvenated at the lower end of the age scale. So that's something we think about a lot. And obviously, the plush introduction of that toy line a few years ago plays a big role in that too. In terms of dynamics of target audiences, both our collectors, as well as obviously the opportunity to target potential new customers, the most interesting dynamic, I think, is what I would call a fragmented media landscape. So it's a lot of business jargon. What does that mean? So in the old days, everybody knows the Hess toy truck jingle. The Hess truck's back and it's better than ever because it was played on the big ABC, NBC, CBS channels all day long. It's very easy to buy those media slots and get mass impressions and get folks familiar with the brand for many years. Well, as people have transitioned from broadcast television, then to cable, then ultimately now to a bazillion different online social media, YouTube, Hulu, name your streaming service, of which there's a plethora, reaching potential customers and frankly continuing to reach existing customers with that jingle as a reminder that it's time to buy your toy. That's actually become the most interesting targeting challenge because people have cut the cord or they don't watch live television anymore, except for the NFL or sports or something that's really only available live. Folks are consuming media at different points in the day or in different environments that are conducive for them. And so our challenge is to continue to make sure we evolve our marketing techniques such that we can attract not only a reminder to our core collectors to, hey, it's time, we're ready, come back and buy from us again, we hope, but obviously to introduce that to new audiences is really a challenge that we've dealt with over the last couple of years. And it's a big piece of what we focus our time on.
Okay, speaking from a collector's point of view right now, why was there no collector's edition 60th anniversary truck for 2024?
So by design, the collector's edition series is meant to be extremely limited, higher retail price point, higher level of finish, polish, and complications, and therefore requires folks to lay out a little bit more of the wallet. And we want to be sensitive to how often we ask folks to do that because we recognize part of our core mission is to be an affordable brand. And so we want to be sensitive to that. And so we're not going to have a collector's edition item every year. Now, the collector's edition that we wanted to bring to market, we knew what it was going to be. We really wanted to do that ocean rescue. We thought it was a wonderful way to update sort of this idea of a Voyager ship in a new way that tied to sort of this vision of what Hess Corporation really was at the time, or this time, and where Hess's exploration and production really how our business operates. And so we had actually debated whether or not it should be the 60th toy or some combination of a collector's edition that we would do tied to the 60th anniversary. But it was just such a natural fit for sort of a call out to where Hess has evolved to as a company that we just felt it naturally fit more with the 90th company celebration than just a toy truck 60th anniversary because of what the product really was. But we loved how it came out. And I'm sure there'll be additional collector's edition items, in the future for folks to enjoy.
Justin, I believe that you yourself have young children. Have you ever used them as a test subject? Have you ever brought something home one night and, after work and maybe after the dinner table or something said, hey, what do you think about this? Or give them something to just see how they play with it. Have you ever beta tested using your own children?
My kids aren't so young anymore. Time goes super fast, as I'm sure many of you know, your fans and yourself. My kids are both in high school. But thinking back, I would say they've absolutely made some wonderful contributions to the Hess brand behind the scenes in a couple of different ways. I'll give you a few examples, I guess. For sure, as young kids, my children were exposed to some early design drafts. Now, I'm not talking about the physical toys, but even just drawings on paper. of early ideas for toys. And they are opinionated, maybe like their father. So I definitely got some feedback about what they liked and what they didn't like, and certainly included those notes when we would discuss possible designs for future years' toys. Some of those opinions were taken with bigger grains of salt than others, I suppose. But yeah, no, they love to be part of that. And I guess I won't even say which year, but my daughter was in one of the commercials as a choir singer. So she certainly played a little bit of a role. And I think what's I'm probably most proud of recently is my son is named as one of the authors of this year's STEM curriculum guide. He was lucky enough to get an internship with the team at Baylor College of Medicine that puts together the curriculum guide each year that is meant to teach new STEM concepts to children using the latest Hess toy truck as the learning instrument. And so my son, who had access to the toy early on because it sits around and has done higher level math and science in school, was really anxious to try to apply some of that into writing a curriculum. So a lot of the activities that you will see in the guide this year, he developed himself, of course, with some support and oversight from the staff at Baylor College of Medicine. So those are just some ways that my kids have certainly been involved, although I would say that I wouldn't call them beta testers specifically.
Justin, can you walk us through what a typical Hess Toy Truck meeting feels like or goes through? Like, in other words, do you have a meeting and you say, all come to order and, okay, let's bounce out some ideas? You, sir, what do you got? No, the fire truck. And you're like, yeah, we just did a fire truck. And then someone else calls out, how about, a construction vehicle? And you go, we haven't done one of those in a while. Like, could you share with us a little bit more of how that comes to be? Or is it just systematically, okay, every couple of years where, we have a method to our madness, our method, an MO to the operation, and we follow strictly to this, can you tell us a little bit more about, what goes into deciding what's going to be the next Hess Toy Truck?
So there's not really like this one big meeting that takes place. I feel like sometimes you think there's a moment where we all get together and just decide what we're going to do. And that's not really how it works at all. We're a small team of folks and we are in contact all the time, right? Every day we are dealing with running facets of a very complicated e-commerce business, right? So everything from the design, which I think is what you're really asking about, to manufacturing, the inbound logistics, outbound logistics, website design management, payment management, right? How we get credit card processing and all of that stuff, call center management for our customer service, social media responses and marketing and media planning. All of those things are part of what we discuss within the business all the time. And the design process is not one meeting. We're constantly talking about what might be next. What's in the pipeline? What are the ideas that we haven't done for a while that we want to bring back? What are some new ideas that we've never done before that we want to introduce? And those conversations start very broad bucketed and will often narrow down to a couple of key categories that we might really be interested in pursuing as the very next toy into market. And what ultimately becomes next is a combination of a lot of factors, right? It's everything from, do we love the design? Is it better than ever in some way, shape, or form, especially if that is like a design from the past that we want to bring back because we think it's a fan favorite, or an iconic Hess type vehicle that maybe the new generation of kids, right? They turn over every 5 to 7 years. Maybe they want a chance to play with a toy like that, and we have to do it better. Can we do it in a way that's affordable? Does the engineering work? Is it durable? All of those things play a role. Now, we certainly do look at what have we done in the past, and we have broad categories that we bucket things in. You can imagine what they might be. For example, emergency vehicles, right? Or racing theme, or aviation. So there's categories. but we use it as input and not necessarily some specific method that says, okay, can't repeat that for a certain number of years or things of that nature. It's much more fluid than that. We've got tons of ideas we love. We've got ideas that sit on shelves and come a couple of years later when the timing might be better for that, or ideas that we love that are sat on the shelves and just continue to sit there because something new comes up into our pipeline that we like better. So a lot kind of goes into that. There's no real perfect rule of thumb. Sometimes it feels like no matter what we choose, somebody's not going to be happy, right? We have folks like, no, stop repeating things. You got to make something new and fresh every year. And then we have the flip side, stop making everything new and fresh. Make sure that it's a tanker. It's got to be a green tanker. So it's a little bit of like, we try to play on both sides of that. We want to make sure we give folks an opportunity to have newness. And we want to make sure that we give new kids an opportunity to return to our classics that previous generations loved.
I want to take a moment to acknowledge all that you've done for the collector community. Some of us that have been, supporting the brand for decades. Now, obviously, you want the younger children, the new toys, they're designed for children, and especially with the plush series, of course we get it. None of us are getting any younger, right? What portion of the pie would you say that us collectors make up as far as purchasing power and also helping you decide what models to come next? Or is that what the collector's edition line is for? It's like, okay, these guys are going to keep pestering us. Let's give them this. We'll focus for the kids on this. For the children, for the baby children with the plush lines. Could you tell us a little about how that gets managed with everything else?
A few years ago, we did a study to try to kind of answer exactly what you're asking us. And we were really blown away with the findings, because a huge portion of the people who responded to the survey self-defined as collectors. Now, you might think that there's a broad range of collectors, and I would probably tend to agree with you. There are folks that are like really into all the nuance of it, yourself included. But I think what's on the other side of that, it's folks who buy it traditionally as part of that family holiday celebration. And it's meaningful for them in some way because it's just part of what they do. And it's a special bond between whoever the gift giver is and the gift recipient. But it was interesting that they also classify themselves as collectors, whether they're truly collecting, as you might say, for some sort of resale value or collecting for future generations, or really just buying repetitively. We're really touched by the number of folks who think of themselves as collectors of the toy. So in terms of balancing, it gets trickier because everybody sort of thinks of themselves as a collector, maybe more so than even you might imagine. But I think from an influence perspective, right, there are things that we want to make sure that we are addressing with what a collector might want, with limited product offerings that might be a little higher scale. And that's where you saw that collector's edition line be introduced. But I think by and large, everybody is also interested in ensuring that we stay true to Leon Hess's vision, and that every new product is broadly appealing in terms of its playability and its affordability, as well as its obviously all of the design criteria that we set out. So I think we have to be really careful that we don't over listen to one side or over listen to the other side, because sort of like I was joking before, you can never be perfect with everybody, right? Even some collectors feel a certain way about, we don't have permission to create fun toys that are outside of the 1960s or 1970s, Hess vehicles that were part of the actual Hess Corporation fleet, even though we've been doing that since the mid 80s. I think it's one of those things where we're cognizant that these folks have different opinions. You can never please everybody. So we just believe that the best course is to stay true to Leon's goals. And that's what we work towards too. And we hope that it satisfies really everybody that has interest in the brand.
I'm going to touch on a bit of a serious subject. Years ago, especially in the dawn of the Facebook age, right? We're talking about 13, 14 years ago. This might have been before your time dealing with the social media aspect of Hess Toy Truck. There were a lot of times I myself would pose questions. Hey, Hess, you say the truck was $1.29, but here's all the evidence. It was $1.39 and all that stuff. And I think I've probably become quite frustrating to some of the staff members asking questions, and I get it. None of you guys were alive back then. Maybe we get it, but over the years there has been unique items. Clear versions, chrome or silver versions of the trucks, and these have surfaced a lot in the past couple of years. I personally think it's because a lot of the legacy old timers have passed on, and through estate sales, a lot of these really unique items that are all legit, they're all official Hess product, have come to surface. Now, I'm going to get right to it because this was explained to me when proven wrong. It was like, look, we don't really want to push these items because we don't sell them, And on your website, on HessToyTruck.com, I've noticed that, you definitely make sure people know, especially parents and grandparents, these are no longer available. Got it. With that all said and done, could you tell us a little bit more about these rare models that we call exclusive only, or for the friends of John Hess, or the family members, or production models? Could you tell us just a little insight, a little background of the origins of how and why some of these rarities have basically come to be?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that might help understanding why there are different sort of versions of these toys that somehow exist in the world is to understand the manufacturing process, which is once we decided that, okay, we're going to make toy A, whatever that toy is going to be, we have to go and produce the molds that will, injection mold plastic, that will shape the toy in all of its little parts. While that's happening, right, we have the opportunity to continue to play with the decoration of that vehicle. That means the colors can change, the striping can change, placement of logos that are not, the lit logos. All of that can change for a few months after we've decided on what the toy is. And so sometimes, those models have gotten out, or pictures of those models have leaked out, or people have seen, it's not exactly what was ultimately produced. In fact, I think I can't see it behind me, but I got a few of those on my shelf on the bottom here that they're, something changed from our initial model to what we actually ended up producing. The clears that you're asking about actually serve a very important production value, which is, they're meant so that we can see through where all the wires are and where all the screws are going, so that we know when we actually produce it, we're not going to nick those lines with the screws and cause shorts or dead on arrival trucks where the lights don't work or the sounds don't work because a wire has been hit by a screw. So they have a real intent and purpose. Now, the different versions of vacuumized metals that we use in different colors, all of that is part of just exploring what things could look like. Now, how some of those get out onto the market over time, you could speculate as much as I could speculate. There's probably a variety of reasons, of whys and hows that they end up on the marketplace. But they have. So I don't think there's any secret that those types of things exist. I have been displaying some of them, silvers and clears, on my shelves behind me for years. So that's kind of how it works.
In the past, we've talked about wonderful and glorious ideas that had never come to pass due to, let's say, technology restrictions at the time. Remember sound in the first tanker? Remember that one? Anyway, so now that it's, at least yourself have been in the driving seat for over a decade now, Is there anything that you guys have revisited from a decade or so past that originally was like, nope, we can't, this is a great idea, but we can't do it because it's too expensive or whatever? Is there anything that you guys brought back to say, okay, wait a second, now due to cost or size or Bluetooth or whatever, now we can do this? Is there anything that you can talk about or maybe allure to that will be upcoming soon that you're finally able to get to? Again, whether cost, price, well, cost to the consumer, price to you, and technology or size, or whatever the logistics may be.
I see what you did there. Try to sneak in, like, what am I going to tell you there at the end? Let me answer your first question first, and then we'll come to that. I think the biggest example of something that was revisited is something I actually mentioned before, the plush line, believe it or not. That idea was first something discussed with Leon Hess back in the 80s. But the technology around infant safety wasn't there. It certainly wasn't where it is now, that allows us to introduce that newborn safe line. And that was what was really important to us because, if you think about it, the Hess trucks are for ages 3 and up. So we really wanted something that was going to be safe for the very young age of the scale. Recognize that some kids get these toys before they're 3 already. So we didn't want to sort of compete with ourselves. In trying to pinpoint like a holiday toy that fits that category, I really don't think I have one that comes to mind. Some ideas, as I was talking about before, get shelved and eventually just sort of die on the vine, or time kind of just passes them by and something new comes up or a new capability, and we want to make sure that we leverage that. And there is some of that, I suppose. Certainly the ability to do the really cool lighting paired really well with the police vehicle, and all that animated light made sense in an emergency vehicle. So sometimes that technology can pair very well and we bring it to market together. But I don't think I have a really great example that I can give you of something we revisited other than the plush one. And part of that's probably because I just don't know the full history of some of those that go deep, far back beyond 15, 20 years. Now, your sneaky question there at the end about what's coming soon. I mean, I'm not going to reveal anything. But I think what is important for your fans to hear is that the future of the Hess toy truck line is super bright. And I think over the next few years, there are some things that you are likely to see that are unexpected and will blow your mind if I told you about them. And I think that's the tease I will leave you with about what's coming soon.
Alrighty, Justin, we're going to wrap things up. As you can probably tell by now, this was a very loose and off the cuff. Let's just kind of have fun one-on-one. I really feel it's important for people to get a visual, for a feeling, for understanding that there's human beings behind this. It really bothers me when someone says, oh, things aren't the way they used to be, and they're doing this now. Well, of course, things change. People change, we change. But for me personally, myself and you and myself years ago had a brief phone call, and that putting the voice to the name, now a face to the name, really helped me understand more about Hess Toy Truck, and I'm happy to fulfill the role of a liaison between the collector community and you guys, because I honestly can understand both sides. Now, that's not to say no mistakes have ever been made. Not everything is perfect, but man, I said it before, I'll say it again. Listen, man, you guys have done more for the collector community in the last 10 years than in the last 25 years. Anyway, with that being said, just coming from you to the fans, to anybody listening, how would you feel? How would you like to express the future of the Hess Toy Truck brand?
So I think the first thing I would do is just generally acknowledge that the very small team of folks that work with me deserve a ton of credit and thanks for their tireless effort to ensure that the holiday tradition has kept trucking along since we migrated from those gas stations a decade ago. And of course, I definitely want to thank you and our other, what I'll call super fans, for your commitment to us and for your support of the program in terms of communicating back to the broader community of our customers. And we really appreciate that you take the time and effort to do that for us. But I think what I really want to say to fans about the future is that from the beginning and for as long as we exist, we will remain true to Leon's vision and the standards that John Hess then built upon for his dad's vision. So I think, as I sort of teased a minute ago, if you thought the plush and collector edition series were fun ads over the last decade, then I think the future is really going to knock your socks off.
All right, Justin, the last question for the day. It's a serious question, but it's kind of important. 10 years ago in 2024, when Hess announced that they were selling all their gas stations, people got upset because now, from you guys, for the Hess Corporation, the stations are just a small part, but for us, the stations were everything, right? And, people were nervous about the future of the Hess toy truck. And but Hess themselves weren't going anywhere. There was still Hess Corporation. Now that Hess Corporation has been sold to Chevron, technically speaking, there's no more Hess Corporation. There is Hess Toy Truck, but there's really no more Hess Corporation. Something that Leon started and John, continued. Well, how do you feel about that? Or how do you think our fans will feel about that? And more importantly, how do we genuinely convey that while what birthed the Hess toy truck may no longer be in existence, that offspring, if you will, the spin-off will continue, and with as much passion for the history that we know has been important. I know that's important to you. Hopefully people through our past interviews have seen how important it is to you as an individual managing the brand. So ultimately, if Chevron buys Hess, how does the rest of Hess exist? How do, what's the future there? How do we continue on that?
Now, I know that this is rightfully on the minds of all of our fans, and I hope that they can understand that I am not allowed to comment on the transaction between Chevron and Hess while it's in process. What I can say to our fans is look back a year ago in October, the morning that merger was announced publicly. John Hess was live on numerous outlets and asked a very similar question. And his answer was clear and consistent that the toy truck tradition would continue into the future. And I think I've already given you some teasers about the excitement that should be looked forward to for what's ahead of us.
Well, thank you so much. It is genuinely, I am genuinely grateful that we could find the time to do a little one-on-one, things that the words in type just don't convey the emotions behind. My mom always taught me, God rest her soul, she always taught me, it's not necessarily what you say, but how you say it. And I'm really thankful that we get just a little chance to go back and forth and share with people the humanity, because let's be honest, sometimes, big, multi-billion-dollar faceless, organization, oil company, who are they? And the funny thing is that more children know what a Hess truck is than they know what oil is, so it made its impact, right? And I just wanted to say thank you for your time today, and for all the Hess Toy Truck fans, we continue to get the information out there. It's HessToyTruckBooks.com. There's no affiliation with you guys. There's no endorsement. We're just individual super fans that like to get the information out there. we want to make sure that people aren't buying fake trucks, especially when there are trucks now that on the secondhand market go for thousands of dollars. Actually, with that said, you know what? I lied. One last question, Justin. When you see the proof that a Hess toy truck sold for almost $12,000, how does that make you feel?
Wow, I thought you were wrapping up and you sneak in that last question. I don't think this is probably going to sit right with you, but the truth is we don't really follow as closely as you might assume the reseller market for the toys. We know it exists. We have a general sense of some of the rare items versus some of the less rare items, so to speak, as you talked about some of these chromes and clears that hit the marketplace. But I think our focus is maniacally on Leon's vision, right? Continuing to make great toys that everybody will cherish and continue to pass down to make future kids smile. How do I feel about knowing that it's high value? I guess to some extent, I think it's kind of cool that people love the Hess brand that much. And my job is to continue to foster that love into the future. So I'd say, I'd say it's a little touching, but it's important to us that we make folks continue to love it. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate the time today, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and I hope all of our fans join in the big 60th anniversary celebration that's woven into this holiday season for us.
Thank you very much, Justin, for your time today. Again, the manager of Hess Toy Truck, Mike Roberto here, thanking you very much for tuning in. 2024 60th anniversary Hess Toy Truck. Well, if you've made it this far, like, subscribe, and do all that stuff. Thank you very much, Justin. Thank you very much to the Hess Toy Truck fans that have supported myself personally over the year with the books and the meetups and all that stuff. Awesome stuff. Thank you very much. Both my mom and dad would probably be very, very happy right now if they could see this. Anyway, thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Justin. Everybody, have a happy and safe holiday season. Thank you.